How's it going, everyone? Jesus here, aka Tyrant Dominus, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about Anchor. Anchor is the one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. And best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading this ad. Honestly, Anchor is a very enjoyable platform to be on, listen on, and just a joy to be a part of this community. Anchor, come check us out. And welcome back to Reactioncast. It's your host Jesus, aka Tyrant Dominus, here to bring you another movie review. This time around, we're going to be talking about Venom, There Be Carnage. This is the movie sequel to the original Venom that released back in 2018, starring Tom Hardy, and this one was directed by Andy Serkis. So, Let There Be Carnage, simply put, since it is the sequel and we kind of got that end credits back in Venom, where we had Woody Harrelson playing Cassidy / Carnage, and this is what we were kind of waiting for, this Carnage film and this insanity. One of the few things I'm going to be stating as far as the film is there's a lot of drawbacks in this film, but there's a lot of like fun positives as well. So I'm going to kind of start out with a few of the negatives because I want to kind of end with the positives of the film. For sure, this film was like lacking in the carnage. And by what I mean by that is the film kind of like it was held back because it was rated like PG-13 in the States. I don't know if that's how it's rated outside in other countries, but it was rated PG-13 and it really needed that like R rating for sure, just to get that like real like raw danger that Cletus and Carnage showcase. There are moments for sure that you kind of saw and they were telling of Cassidy's kind of like character, but for sure it was held back and it could have like had a little bit more oomph to it. For sure, the moments where you got some of the great fun stuff was when Tom Hardy and Venom were doing like their monologues within each other and their interactions. Those were fun. Though the issue I had a lot of times was the jokes just kept going. And what I mean by that is they really went with the humor aspect in this film this time around. And like, it's fun, you get some of these quirkiness back from like Venom 1. And I did enjoy it. The problem was it just kept getting shoved in your face. And I'm like, okay, I'm kind of, joke number 4, right? I kind of want a little bit more action or something, plot moving. It's just like joke upon joke, and alright, yeah. There was a few good jokes for sure, but when you're getting bombarded with so much, that's when it kind of gets, alright. The other few issues I had was kind of the way the plot flowed, the way they structured it. I can kind of see what they were trying to do, what Andy Serkis was trying to do, because for the most part it wasn't too convoluted of a plot and how it was framed out, but at times it just felt a little off, I would say. For sure, there was like a lot of subplots and of these kind of plots of relationships and stuff like that. It's fun and endearing, but there's a lot of like humor that's overused and then when the action does hit, it hits and it's shortened until you kind of get to the final act. As far as like some of the CG, some of the things, because this is kind of a Venom film and there's gonna end up being like a CG battle, for the most part I didn't really have any issue with the CG during like the second and third act. First act you kind of notice it, but your eyes kind of get adjusted to it, for sure. But you do kind of see it lacking in the first act. But for sure, they really put a lot of effort during the second and third act to kind of dial that CG in. Besides that, most of the plot was pretty like straightforward. Nothing really intense or craziness. But for sure, some of the writing wasn't that great. It was pretty cringy at times. And I'm like, oh, all right, yeah, sure, why not? You know, like, okay. You know, you kind of just went with the flow. There was really, for me specifically, there wasn't really any time where I like felt bored, but I was getting there sometimes. But luckily, like I said, the plot kind of transitioned well enough where I was like, okay, next scene, let's see what happens now. But like I said, the humor was just a little too overabundant, where I was like, okay. But overall, the plot of the story, the Carnage, the Venom, the Tom Rock's character, and Cassidy's character, and the character of Screech as well. It's not like it's spoiling anything. She was in the trailer. There's not really much to say without going into spoilers. It's just like overall the film was reasonably okay to watch, but there was like really nothing to kind of like really hit me like, oh yes, that's what I want, like, oh that's amazing, like it just like the oomph factor, just something to kind of just bump it up. And there were a few times where you kind of just felt, because there was like a lot of moments that they were trying to like implicate a lot of like feels and stuff like that, and they tried, but it didn't click at times. Like, okay, yeah, I know what they're trying to do, and it just didn't feel right. The movie's only an hour and a half long. I think it could have used a little bit more time to kind of build out some of these things, fleshed out a little bit more like plot within characters, some character building and stuff like that, to kind of like, okay, for sure some of the subplots that were going along didn't help a lot, because it was like, okay, there were just a lot of like plot devices that just like, okay, this is why this person's there, this is why this thing's here. I'm like, oh, okay. And it just never really paid off. For sure, some of the I would say the best thing about the film is the mid-credit scene. But I'm kind of taking away from that because it's not officially part of the film itself. Whenever I think about mid-credit scenes or end-credit scenes, that is an after thing. The movie is whatever it is just before the credits start running, at least the first run of credits. But for the most part, the film was like, you know, I had fun watching it. Like towards the end, I was like, okay, crazy, interesting. Some like I said, it was funny. I laughed. I had some fun, but like I said, it was like just a little too many jokes put into it. Like I didn't know what the film was trying to be. Was it trying to be like more comedy centric or action centric, or thriller? Like it just didn't. I don't know. It just didn't have any fit to anything, or it just tried to be a lot of things and it just didn't work out for me. So I'm gonna just kind of go with my final verdict, and then I'm gonna go with my we're gonna go into the after credits after this, and I want to talk about a couple things that are like, okay, so I'm gonna give my final thoughts, or at least my final review, and then go into the after credits. So as my final review for this film, or my final score review, my final score for this film was, I want to give this film I'm trying to think. When I rewatch this film, I'm going to be rewatching the film for sure, just to kind of like catch some of the Easter eggs and stuff, because I enjoy doing that kind of stuff. But there's nothing like specific that I want to see. Like even some of the action sequences are like not crazy enough where I want to rewatch them. Just you know what? I'm gonna give this film a solid 5 out of 10. It's an average film. Yeah, it's an average film. Like would I watch it again? Not 100% sure. If it's on the background or someone invited me, I'll go see it again. But I saw it once, and I'm fine with that. I had fun watching it one time. I'm good. For sure, the mid-credit scene was the best part of the entire film, and that's saying something. But yeah, 5 out of 10. Let me know what you guys thought of the film. Like I said, if you're listening to this on any of the podcast networks, just hit me with a hit on Twitter or Instagram, wherever I post the link to this episode, or if you're watching it on YouTube, leave it in the comments. Let me know. So follow any of those socials. So with further ado, I'm going to go into the after credits, but if you don't want to hear any of that, then thanks again for listening. Until next time, see ya. And welcome to the after credits. Thank you for staying this far. So, God, that after credit scene. So we're going to talk about the after credit scenes and some of the stuff that I thought more intense in the film. You know, I literally had to hold myself from yelling when they revealed that Venom somehow ends up in the MC universe. And I was like, so crazy. And I have so many questions, and it was just so great. There was still another joke added into that scene, but I was fine with it. I honestly didn't know what they were going to do, because the scene is basically they're on a beach, probably like Florida, Mexico, or Caribbean, somewhere tropical, and they're in the hotel just kind of hanging out, and I thought they're going to kind of reveal Null and stuff like that, because they're kind of going into like this hive mind symbiote thing. And as you know, they're about to kind of do this, you know, get this flash, and Eddie and Venom don't know what the heck's happening. Venom's like, I don't know what's happening. And next thing you know, the room changes, everything just kind of fluctuates, and the TV program changes, and you just hear the voice of J. Jonah Jameson, and they announce that Tom Holland's Spider-Man is Peter Parker. And I'm like, oh my god, and it was so amazing. It's so great to know that Tom Hardy's Venom is gonna be interacting with this world of the MCU. It's one of the things that has been like speculated online, because there was a moment where Tom Hardy was wearing a Spider-Man No Way Home hat. It was so crazy, and just I thought, oh, is he gonna end up in Spider-Man? But there was like no inclination, but there might be a possibility that he's gonna be in there, because he did show up in this end credit. Like, it's just so great to see things like this. This is the things that you gotta love about this franchise that Marvel has built up, and it's so fun to know that it's just so crazy. But yeah, that's my kind of giddiness about that end credits. I'll talk about more of that once I kind of get my Marvel Cinematic Universe crew together, and we can kind of do a discussion about it. So some of the other things I want to talk about that were like spoiler wise. So the way they handled Carnage here was, I should have done this a little bit. I didn't feel that they did Carnage like a lot of like service to him. They really, I did kind of mention that they kind of held back on the like violence and the true scope of how visceral Carnage is, and you could see it. It just didn't help. It just didn't help a lot. And then the whole plot with Screech and the kind of the love between back and forth between Cassidy and Screech. It just like it was just a really bad plot device, and I kind of felt like they were doing like, were they hinting at mutants or something, because they did say mutations and things like that. And then the whole plot with like Mulligan, and then kind of introducing Toxin, the next villain possibly for Venom 3, and like, okay, I see what you're doing there. And then just like I said, there was like a lot of like banter there was like a lot of relationship banter happening in this movie for sure. And this is one of the issues I had with the films, in the way that it was like rubbing it in your face with all these extra jokes. Like, it was fun like here and there, One of the funniest jokes I would say for me that got me and it made me laugh was one of the scenes during the cathedral scene when Cassidy is marrying Screech, and as Screech uses her powers and she's can like do like high yelling shit, it kind of hurts the symbiotes because they're, you know, affected by sound and fire, and Carnage just like swings her away and Cassidy gets mad, and then Venom just says like, already having problem with before the honeymoon, and it, you know, it's funny, it made me laugh. But it's one of those things that there's a lot of like relationship jokes that were in this one, where it's funny in different parts, like when Venom and Brock are fighting in the apartment because like Eddie's kind of down and still. Then the relationship between Brock and Anne and how she's getting married with Dan, things like that, and it's just like, okay, you know, you're bringing it up because it happened from last movie and they're just continuing on with that. But it was like, okay, you know, there's some things, but it just kind of just felt awkward at times, and like, all right, it kind of even said awkward in time, you know, Venom, Venom actually said it. But then you had like the weird relationship between Brock and Cassidy, and it's just like there was a lot. And it just sometimes didn't fit well. It just didn't meld well. And kind of like I was saying, the way the movie flowed, it kind of did a lot of disservice to how the character building was being done between all these people. Because there was a lot they had to put in this film. It's a continuation of Venom 1, so basically you have to meet up from a sequel, introducing an origin story to Carnage and introducing Screech, and just doing all this within an hour and a half, and it was just like, okay, you see, that's kind of, there's a lot to put in this film. Like I said, it could have used a little bit more time to help like alleviate some of the things, because there was like a lot of funny scenes, like Carnage, like when he does kind of go solo, and there's that whole scene in the DJ rave party, that's pretty funny. There's one of the best parts, I'm gonna save this for this, I like this when he's in when Venom takes over Mrs. Chang, it's like it's just so funny. It's one of the greatest like things ever. I love that actress, she's just so amusing, and it's just great. And for sure it had me like, for sure had a smile on my face. But yeah, besides that, it just there's just a lot for a film to do in an hour and a half. And with the rating it was given and the story it was trying to tell, it did kind of like do so little. But I'll leave it at that. So if you made it this far, thank you for listening, thank you for staying for the after credits. And like I said, follow me on any of my social medias, Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok. So until next time, see ya.